So what we might do is I might start by, if we start off some introductions and we talk nice and slowly, hopefully by the time we get to his introduction, he will have arrived. Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's lovely to be here at level 39, coming back and seeing the wonderful views that I've not seen for probably 2 years. Fantastic place, so thank you very much for having us. As I said, my name is Mark Walker. I am the co-founder of the Fintech Power 50, which is an exclusive accelerator program designed to help fintech scale-up companies with their domestic and their global growth, helping them with their PR and brand amplification, their business development, their talent and their investment opportunities. So we've got a great panel to talk about AI here as well, and I'm going to ask Greg if maybe you could give us a quick introduction and overview from yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody, and good morning. My name is Greg Cox. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Monevo. Monevo is a personal credit platform and API that essentially provides a decisioning integration and technology layer between about 150 banks and lenders globally and wherever customers live, so price comparison sites, apps, and we provide the plumbing between those two parties. I'm also the CEO of Quint Group, and we own about another 4 or 5 consumer credit businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much for coming back. I thought you scared you away, but
Sorry.
If you could perhaps give us introduce yourself and a little bit about the business that you're representing.
Yeah. I'm Ronak Halani. I'm CEO Agile Automations. So we design and develop bespoke RPA softwares for banks, insurance companies to automate their processes and systems to save resources, make efficiency savings, and improve customer service.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to have you both here to talk about AI in financial services and fintech. I'm going to come to you, Ronak. You're going to get the first question again because of your lateness. So AI, artificial intelligence. What do we really mean by artificial intelligence? It's a subject that's been really interesting to me because obviously we see a lot of sci-fi films that are talking about, recreating humans and true artificial intelligence. But maybe talk to us a little bit about what the difference between machine learning is or deep learning and that sort of things to set the scene.
Yeah, so we come across several AI definitions, and some people like it, there are some skeptics. So I'll put it down very simplest terms. In a practical sense, what we do with our clients is break down AI into 3 levels of machine learning. The first one would be where a robot observes users' actions, records it, and plays it again. As simple as that. So it learns from what humans do and just without applying its own intelligence per se. It just mimics that. So that's the simplest machine learning, level 1. Level 2 would be where a robot is fed lots of structured data. Data is relatively nicely arranged, so a robot can identify some good patterns in it and come up with some scenarios of its own, or process the pre-fed scenarios which are designed by the human. So level 2 machine learning. Again, it's not too intelligent per se. And the next one, which is in theory, there are very few practical applications where you go with the machine learning level 3, or if you like, deep learning or neural network, where you feed lots of unstructured data, no scenarios at all, and it comes up with things that humans can't anticipate. So it anticipates the future things. That can be very useful in serving customers and identify what would a customer would need and customize products or services provided by the fintech.
Okay, that's really good. That really helps us sort of set the scene. So, Greg, coming to yourself, what sort of examples are you using in your sort of businesses that maybe are back office uses of AI, but also obviously the more interesting customer sort of UX interfaces?
Yeah, so we've been using AI and machine learning in Monevo for about 2 years now, so it's been a bit of a journey for us. And we're really using it to personalize credit products for customers. So we're taking a lot of historic data and looking to make credit offers more relevant for customers, predicting whether a customer will go on to be approved for credit products or loans, going on to understand whether a customer, even if they're approved, will they take it out, do they want it, is it relevant to it? So we're using it to really tailor what customers want, to provide a more tailored experience and ultimately better outcomes for customers and better outcomes for the banks and lenders that are our customers.
Okay, it's interesting. And maybe on the back office side of things, are you using anything in that sort of area to increase efficiencies? Or
We're not using a lot. We've got some chat bots, which are AI powered in our credit improvement businesses. But we're also doing some interesting stuff in credit intelligence, which is our credit improvement business. And again, we're using AI and machine learning there to help customers understand what they need to do to improve their credit profiles and credit scores. So we're essentially predicting, using predictive analytics, if you do this, your credit score will improve by this much, and then helping customers to build action plans in order to deliver that, which is quite an interesting space for us.
Yeah, okay. And Ronak, from your perspective, what sort of applications and use cases are you sort of seeing?
So we work with lots of fintech customers, banks, insurance companies, and they have biggest problem is that data is sometimes all over the place, legacy systems, unstructured data. So we work with them to build the robotic process automations, robots, which can make sense of all that data, process it, and then areas like anti-money laundering, regulatory reporting, FATCA regulations, transactions monitoring, like millions of transactions per day, the robot can monitor it per second, millions of them. So it makes it really easy to identify fraudulent cases and things like that. So we apply machine learning levels that I described before in building those robots.
Okay. And sort of moving on from that, what sort of challenges because obviously you're dealing with quite a wide selection of different types of fintechs. What sort of challenges are they sort of finding with using and adopting sort of the machine learning within their processes?
Bit of that is education piece, adoption. So we try to make it as simple for our clients to understand machine learning, and AI is not as scary as the media portrays sometimes.
Or the sci-fi films.
Yeah,
which,
simplify that. So it's simply just processing the data, and it has the advantage of speed, resources, and all those things, lack of human emotions, so it helps them make the decision. But that's education and adoption. Another challenge is like practical challenges, like legacy systems. Lots of source data is not good enough for AI to make any sort of decisions. So we are in a process, a journey with our customers to solve those problems. And then general perceptions. So we just need to make public be more, favorable towards AI. So when you talk to chatbot, or when you have a credit decision made by a robot, it's a good thing. There has been some ups and downs, but eventually it will just make customer services for everybody much better.
So are you seeing a trend of a lot more sort of where people are no longer making custom solutions just for themselves, that they're using existing platforms of artificial intelligence that they're then customizing rather than building everything from scratch? Is there sort of an area of people working things together?
There is definitely a hybrid model, and we're going to have to adapt to a hybrid model for some time, where we use the platforms, technology available, like several different RPA software companies out there, pick and choose off-the-shelf products, but then also two drivers are market change, so competitor change, or customer service demands change, or new products coming. So a tech company or a fintech company will need to adapt and come up with some bespoke solutions of their own, using the new and emerging tech.
Yeah, that's coming in. Okay, so Greg, coming to you, so thinking about sort of new and the sort of future, what sort of areas do you think are the ones that are sort of adapting or being looked at for the future?
I think there's lots of really interesting use cases for it. I mean, obviously, we're excited about what we can achieve in credit and in credit improvement across a couple of our different businesses. I think financial inclusion is a really interesting space. So, if you look traditionally, people, if they haven't had a credit score, they haven't had a credit report, they haven't had a bank account, it's been very difficult for them to access credit and mainstream financial services. You're now seeing, what machine learning and AI is doing is allowing businesses to crunch a lot more data and a lot of unrelated data to help make decisions about customers. And you look at South America, there's a lot of great work being done where they're able to financially include more people, provide financial services to people that wouldn't be able to get those financial services because they didn't have that credit report or that bank account with a mainstream bank. Now these businesses are able to look at everything from social media to whole bunches of other data that's available to them. And really it's AI and machine learning that allows that to be crunched. You need hundreds and hundreds of people to do it, or even thousands of people. And I think it's created that scale in terms of data processing that's allowed for some of these, these initiatives to be put forward. I think, obviously we're here today to talk about fintech, but there's some really interesting stuff being done in medicine as well. And predicting when people might have heart attacks or predicting when people might have conditions, in preventative medicine. So I think that's another really useful, application, which obviously I don't need to tell the people in the room, how relevant that could be for all of us. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we could probably go down quite a rabbit hole with this sort of discussion, but thinking about, there's a lot of talk about the bias which can exist within AI because of the data that's being fed to it. Maybe what's your sort of thoughts on that and how that's going to play out into sort of the future?
Look, I think it's a difficult topic. I mean, look, the data that's fed to it is by humans, so there's always bias in all of us. At the end of the day, for us, when we kind of went on our journey with AI and machine learning, we started in a place with some sort of software that we brought in. And found that we couldn't operationalize it and scale it. And we actually decided to partner with a business called Moderator that essentially provides us with a platform that allows us to operationalize our models, host them in the cloud, and allow them to be accessed via APIs. But what Moderator also does is it gives us complete transparency on what's driving the outcomes of our models. So for any one particular model, we're able to see exactly what are the key predictive assets within that. And that gives us transparency. Whether a regulator comes and asks us and said, how have you made that decision? We can audit all of that and understand it and make sure that that kind of bias or any risk is being removed before we operationalise the models.
It's kind of like we hear a lot of talk about black box machine learning and transparent sort of open source sort of that, and I guess that's what you're kind of alluding to.
Yeah, I think from any business that's making decisions, especially in regulated markets, should understand why those decisions are being made. So I think the concept of black box and nobody knows what's going on, that's back to sci-fi movies, super scary for all of us, and I don't think it's something that anybody wants to see. I think from our perspective, it's about making sure we understand exactly what's driving the models, why the decisions are being made, are they delivering positive outcomes for people, and if they do, the box is ticked.
Yeah. Okay. And Ronak, sort of along the same sort of subject, obviously from the product side of things, what can you actually do with machine learning to try and program out sort of a bias or compensate for something like that? What sort of techniques have you seen being used?
Yeah, so some of the solutions we've developed, we have given customers the ability to tweak the robot and its outcome. So that's called soft coding. So hard coding is in the robot, which is it has to do a certain task every day and every time it's run. But soft coding is like list of decisions that customers can make. Simply a table like if this then that, and customers can change based on several different factors, like say their risk appetite changed and they want to stop giving loans to risk factor under 6. So they can change it. So it's not that robot is set in stone and it will always carry on doing the original task intended. We can give customers lots of flexibilities using all that.
Okay. And staying with you for a moment, thinking about regulation, do you think there is a case for a regulatory body to come in and help police that and make sure that these sort of techniques can be used or should be used?
Sure, that will build confidence in the concept itself. And although currently there is no specific regulation for AI, but in April 21, recently, European Union published a new paper and a guideline for the regulations around AI. In the UK, we have, FCA regulation is an umbrella for all financial activities done by human or the robots, but the government is reviewing it. So there was a paper published in Feb 20, so we can go on Gov website and do artificial intelligence, and there is. So they have put some recommendations for future regulations in. So I think that will form the foundation of like a bit structured regulation coming for AI. Once that happens, everybody does the same way, and customer will have a bit more confidence in the tech.
Okay. And Greg, from your point of view, obviously you alluded earlier about how much social benefit that the use of machine learning can have. What do you think your take on it is with regulation? Regulation, it needs to encourage it, obviously. So how would you go about doing that?
Look, I think regulation is one of those things. If you're doing whatever you're doing, if it's good for customers and good for people, you'll never have a problem with the regulator. If it's bad for people and bad for customers, the regulator will take issue with it. My view is that the different regulators of different sectors, within consumer credit, our space, it's the FCA, they're learning about AI and learning about machine learning, just like they learned about online, 10 years ago. And they'll build that into their regulation and build specific rules, around it where required. But I think that the big thing, and this goes back again to the sci-fi film analogy, it's about control. We're all comfortable with robots as long as we're in control of them and they're doing what we ask them to do and we understand what they're doing. Where everybody starts to worry is where that control gets lost. And sci-fi films, they start running around shooting humans. We don't like the idea of that. Within our businesses, creating bad outcome for customers is the equivalent of that. So, look, regulators will continue to need to understand it, want to understand how it's adopted. But it's such a big field as well that I think it's going to be very difficult to specifically regulate. I think it will probably be on a market-by-market basis.
Yeah, sort of basis. I think it's really interesting to see, obviously, as we've seen with financial services regulation across the world, that there's massive variances in different countries and different governments' viewpoint on what should be done. I'm guessing that you would see that as a similar sort of thing. If you think about it from a more of a global perspective, there's a need for a consistency in some way.
There is, yeah. Also, there should be some creative freedom for coming up with the new tech and new concepts. So, yeah, regulations will help to bring that confidence and consistency. But because it's just like online and social 15 years ago, it has evolved along with the regulations. So I think this new tech will also evolve and regulations will change side by side for the better of human.
I think accountability is an interesting one. I think where people and regulators will start to get worried is if within big corporations they're saying, well, the robots did that, I didn't really understand it. Because ultimately, if you look at governance within businesses, people need to be responsible for what's going on in their businesses. Post-financial crisis, there's been new regulation and greater kind of personal responsibility put on bankers, for example. Yeah. And I think ultimately there has to be accountability for what software is doing. And AI and machine learning, I think it's always got to come back to a person that is responsible for what that's doing. And then you've got that accountability chain, which is what I think what regulators would want to see and indeed all of us would want to see.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're getting waved at the back that we've not got a lot of time left. Unfortunately, I'd love to talk for a lot longer with both of you. But maybe if we, for our final sort of point, Ronak, if you could go first, maybe sort of sum up some key takeaways and some things that the audience here and online should really be thinking about when they think of AI in financial services.
Sure. Fintech, new companies and existing ones, they're all over the world now starting to adapt the new tech. So we in UK as well, we should be open and proactively adapting the new tech. Take a new software or a product for a ride with a proof of concept, something like Agile automations or robotic process automations. And it will give a massive return on investment for relatively low, upfront investment. So
awesome.
Try it.
Give it a go.
Yes.
And Greg?
I think from my perspective, there's a huge amount of opportunity using AI in fintech. From experience, my advice would be prepared to invest in it. Don't expect to get results straight away because they won't happen. And try and keep your initial scope as narrow as possible. Try and find a simple problem to solve with AI and machine learning first, and then build out from there. Because if you start with too broad a horizon on it, it's a bottomless pit of opportunity, but I think it's very difficult to focus.
Yeah. Fantastic. Some great times. Our time is up, unfortunately, so it's been fantastic to be here in front of an actual live audience. Thank you all very much for coming. And again, thank you to Level 39 and for Fintech Week London for having us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.